We just sailed on Grandeur of the Seas for 11 nights in an ocean view room. Is Grandeur of the Seas a good ship for 11 nights? Well, we're gonna give you our honest review on how that sailing went and whether or not we think it's a good ship for long sailing. Okay, so first up, we want to talk about the room. So we were on deck 2 in an ocean view room. So this is a smaller room, it wasn't a spacious ocean view, and it was all the way on the bottom deck. The only people below us were the crew.
It was 154 square feet, and we did have to utilize the Pullman. The couch was not big enough. It was kind of like an oversized love seat for our daughter to sleep on.
Yeah, it didn't convert at all. So you had to use that Pullman. There was no other option in the room for a third or fourth guest to sleep on.
Our room did have one of the big rectangle windows, so we did not have a porthole window, but they had a piece of plexiglass bolted so you couldn't actually get to the window because of how much like mold and caulking and stuff was there. She did go into dry dock after our sailing, so hopefully they fixed that part. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, like she said, the window was moldy, but that wasn't really just the extent of it. The AC was absolutely disgusting. So I'm actually looking past you guys into the AC now and just check this one on this ship. It's not like it at all. I mean, I'll put up pictures of the AC here. I mean, just completely covered in dust. I mean, hanging all over it. The bathroom was dirty and the shower head was actually broken and spraying out the sides of the shower head. There was basically zero way to keep water from leaving that little flimsy curtain. It was in terrible shape. Now this was February of 2024, and obviously they went into dry dock in March of 24. How much of this has been fixed, I don't know, but I can definitely tell you she was not in good shape for this sailing.
And we did let the steward know they did fix things. They fixed the shower curtain, they fixed the shower head. We did clean the air vent, but did kind of tell them, hey, here's what's happening. They fixed our hair dryer that was shooting sparks. That was a fun one. So just little things here and there that needed updates. They did take care of what they had power of while on the ship.
It was just in rough shape overall. We're glad they took care of most of the issues, but just know that going into it, it's their oldest, smallest ship, so you can't expect the quality you're gonna get on Icon of the Seas or Utopia when you're sailing on something so old that's likely going to be out of the fleet soon. Initially, I was concerned that we were going to be on the ship for 11 days with no balcony, being in an ocean view room on such a low deck. I will say there were some positives to it. One, it forced us to go out and be on the pool deck if we wanted to be outside instead of just being in the room and retreating to our own little secluded balcony area. Second thing was being so low, like in the basement, like I jokingly called it with Amy, was we did not feel much motion at all. So it was very smooth sailing. So that is going to be a benefit of sailing in those lower staterooms. Now, Grandeur of the Seas only has one main pool on the pool deck, and it does have a little shallow area for kids to play in, but because there is no Splashaway Bay or Adventure Beach on that ship, all the kids are there. And they're jumping, taking over that area. They only have 2 small hot tubs. So it's very, very limited on that main pool deck area and very limited for families. So that is a major point of contention, just so you know. However, they do have the solarium.
The indoor solarium. Now, if you've done any Alaskan sailings, you'll notice that the cruise ships there have indoor solariums, some with retractable roofs. This one does not. This is fully interior. It is humid and hot. They try to climate control it, but you do have one big pool. You've got 2 gigantic hot tubs. So there's lots of space in the solarium. But if something happens in the main pool, the kids can't come to the solarium. So the kids are kind of stuck if something happens in the main pool.
And I noticed a lot, it seemed like the adults were all just kind of retreating to the solarium most of the time, unless they were there with kids, in which case they stayed at the main pool. So just know that that is one of the things that you're gonna have to contend with. Speaking of kids, what is there for kids to do on Grandeur of the Seas? Well, we've already done a video for that here that you can click on to find out whether or not Grandeur of the Seas is a good ship for kids. These smaller ships have that centrum area in it. If you haven't sailed on one before, it's kind of the main hub of activity on the ship throughout the day other than the pool deck. They have 2 elevators going up and down, as you can see in the video here. and they have a stage there. And that stage is where they host a whole variety of shows, from just classical music like piano and violin to egg drops where people are dropping eggs from like the 9th floor down. You also have Dancing with the Stripes, which was new to us, but it was really cool. It was basically their take on Dancing with the Stars, where the cruise director hosted it and officers from around the ship came out and got paired with a random guest. Then they were just played random music and they had to dance to it, and then the Centrum was filled on every deck from 4 all the way up, and we got to vote by applause on who won. So that was a really neat thing. And the Centrum is just a cool area for that. They also have the Centrum bar, and on deck 6 they have Cafe Latitudes. So Cafe Latitudes is going to be your coffee shop on board these ships, as opposed to the Cafe Promenade on the larger ships that have a Royal Promenade. Speaking of activities, Grandeur was not short on activities and things for us to do and see. Production shows were abundant on this ship. Even the cruise director, John, had his own Showtime show. Yes, he had his own production show. He is a singing cruise director. It completely threw us off on the Welcome Aboard show where he came out singing Sweet Caroline. It was interesting and fun and unique, so that's a really cool thing about John, is that he's out there singing and doing himself, not just hiring entertainment, but being the entertainment.
And his wife's on board. So we're used to seeing the cruise director everywhere on board. And then when there's 2 of them and they tag team, they were hilarious. So we absolutely loved having both of them on board, and we're totally taken back when he did the whole entire welcome show. Like, that was him, he nailed it.
Now, show-wise, they do not have any of the Broadway licensed production shows, but they do have several good shows. They have Broadway Rhythm and Rhyme, as well as Tango Buenos Aires. We felt like those were both really good shows.
And another thing to note about the theater, or the seats.
Yes. Yeah, I actually like the seats in that theater. So we're on Indy right now, and the seats are very tight. It kind of feels like stadium seating where they all like flip down and they're tight. The cup holders are kind of small. On Grandeur, it was almost like an individual kind of like sitting chair.
Plush seat.
Yeah, and now the theater isn't that big because it's a smaller ship, but looking around it, it's laid out well. The balconies kind of like wrap around to the side, but very narrowly. The theater is set up well, and I felt like it was never really at capacity, so we always had a seat for the show.
And even when it was, they had the seats scattered within the rows that no one was in front of you, and you had a straight shot.
As far as performers that came on the ship that weren't already on the ship, we got to see an a cappella group, and I feel so bad. I'm gonna put up a clip for you guys, but I cannot remember their name for the life of me. But they were really good. It was a young group of men I'd never seen before, but they were awesome. They were very engaging, got the crowd involved. I thought it was really fun.
They were on point. They were amazing. And the guy with the bass line, stellar.
Yeah, the beatboxer, bass guys, those 2 guys were just stars of the show for sure. Not that the others weren't amazing vocalists, because they were, but it was just an all-around great show. The other performers that came on board were an Argentinian group that went by Explosion. This seems to be a trend that's taking over the shows right now. So you guys may have seen El Gaucho, then there's Explosion, and today we're currently on Indy, and there's a similar production show here called Impact, which, if I'm being honest, is not as good as Explosion. Yeah, Explosion was really good. There's dancing and singing and drumming and swinging of the balls on the sticks while semi-tap dancing, beating on cajones. I mean, it's a lot of stuff going on, and Explosion was very exciting, very energetic. We really liked that show. At the very back of the South Pacific Lounge is where the Crown Lounge, formerly the Diamond Lounge, is at. And it was a great place. We were actually there for sail away from Miami.
And to add on to the Crown Lounge, we spent a lot of time there. I work remotely, and I get to test out the internet on all ships with video calls and the whole thing. So I didn't have any issues with the internet.
Yeah, so something to keep in mind with that is that it is, like we already mentioned, the oldest and smallest ship. So because of its older age and the fact that it wasn't built for Wi-Fi, you're not gonna have great signal everywhere. Now, like we said, they did just go on a dry dock for technology upgrades. We were told by staff that the Wi-Fi is one of the main upgrades that they're looking at doing, as well as doing simple things for the staff. So staff was still using beepers or pagers when there's an issue and having to look at a number and go call it to find out what they needed, as opposed to all the other ships where they have phones that they carry around with them where they can know what's going on. They were also replacing carpet in the dining room, fixing leaks in the roofs because it was a known issue that there was leaks in the rooms. So the dry dock was kind of a quick and dirty turnover, but those technology upgrades were definitely needed. So moving on to food, and there's a lot of it on this ship, at least for the size of the ship. So we started off the first night in the main dining room and we did not have a good experience. We tried it 3 more times, and after night 4, we had 4 nights of mediocre or poor tasting food and really, really slow service. We decided we weren't gonna go to the main dining room anymore, which is abnormal for us. And we ended up just doing the Windjammer or specialty dining every other night due to the poor quality and service we got there. The macaroni and cheese was so bad, our toddler wouldn't eat the macaroni and french fries. I don't know how else to put that into perspective for you guys. She would literally only eat macaroni and french fries if we let her. So finally we tried that and she wouldn't even eat that. And then when we tried it, we were like, I now know why you're not eating it.
Right, but she cleaned up. Their Windjammer food was, and this is really weird for us, but the Windjammer food was a lot better than the main dining room. So, I mean, she ate every time we went to the Windjammer.
Yeah, the selection of food in the Windjammer was really good, and so was the quality. We really enjoyed it. I know you're thinking buffet may not be of high quality, especially if you're used to going to the main dining room for dinner. However, their Windjammer food was excellent. Now, I do have some gripes about their Windjammer. So their Windjammer buffet is a circle where your inner circle is the main courses, and then your outer circle are like your extras, so like burgers, hot dogs, dessert, and a salad bar. This inner outer circle thing causes a lot of congestion, and it's very hard to navigate. You have people going every which way. It's not clearly delineated which way you should be going, whether you're going against the grain, counterclockwise, clockwise. It was very confusing, very frustrating, and it was a lot of people packed into a really small space where other Windjammers are spread out. You have other bars you can go to. That's not the case here. The other main issue with the Windjammer was just the general lack of seating. It seemed like every time we went, we were like sharks on the hunt for a meal, looking for a table to go to. And 2 times we ended up sharing tables with other people that were looking for tables that just couldn't find them. After like 2 or 3 laps, we felt bad for them. We're like, hey, why don't you join us? And we shared meals with other couples and other families at a table just because they literally couldn't find a table, and we felt their frustrations. This cruise was actually over Valentine's Day, which has a special meaning to us because more importantly to us, it's actually Amy's birthday. So we went to Izumi's for her birthday dinner. That's where she picked. And overall, I would say it's like 6.5 out of 10. Not the best meal we've ever had. And trust me, we like Japanese food. We eat it a lot. The sushi was fantastic. Yeah, the sushi was fantastic. So go ahead and give them your review on the ramen. I think you put it into words pretty eloquently.
Now, I want to preface this with, we are not new to ramen. We eat ramen regularly and are very familiar with how it's supposed to be. This ramen broth tasted like mop water.
Yeah.
Dirty mop water. Now,
Dirty mop water.
the innards were good, but the broth, not so much.
So definitely stick with the sushi or another dish.
The sushi was phenomenal. It was great. I'm glad we did it. One of the neat things was they came out and sung happy birthday to her, and the couple next to us also just happened to be Royal Caribbean staff. They joined in and sang to us as well. Really her, not us, but they sang as well. And they gave her little trinkets from Royal Caribbean as a gift too, which was unexpected, but very nice. Cheesecake was great, but that's it. Cheesecake and sushi, that's what I would get from Izumi's on Grandeur. Thanks to our now friend Cyan, we got to eat at Chops as well on that ship, and I will say Chops was better than I remembered. You know, I've been beating up Chops pretty hard on some of these videos because the last few times we had gone, I just felt like it was subpar or okay. On Grandeur, it was actually pretty good. The steak was delicious, the food was really good. I was very happy with the service there. I just felt like this Chops, for whatever reason, was a step up from the other ones. So I'm gonna upgrade Chops for this video and tell you Chops is a go for me on Grandeur. I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. Being a Valentine's Day cruise, one of the neat things was the ship was actually decorated for Valentine's Day. It had balloons and stuff all over the centrum, as well as they had a special cake on board for a Valentine's Day cake. By the time I got to it, it had already been cut up. But here's a picture of what it looked like. It was massive. This definitely doesn't do it justice.
No, it was massive. And the cake was good too. And they walked around and they were serving it to all the different people who were in the dining room or anybody who walked by trying to get rid of that cake.
Yep. So speaking of the kitchen and cake, did you know that there's a peekaboo look-in to the kitchen on Grandeur of the Seas? So on deck 12, if you come out of the kids area, kind of near the arcade, you can go around to the front of the ship, and there's a little viewing area that you can walk up onto to kind of look out around the sea or whatever port you're at, and you'll see this little glass like teepee dome looking thing. If you look down there, this is what you see. It's a really neat view into one of their kitchen areas where you can see them prepping food and making cakes back there, which we never knew about and we actually discovered on accident. Continuing on with the technology, they don't have digital photos on this ship. So now on most ships, you can see the pictures in your app and decide whether or not you like them, or when you go down to the photo gallery, you have those screens where you can swipe your SeaPass card and then you can look at photos. You can say which ones you like and don't like. On Grandeur, they don't have that. They have printed photos every single day that you can go through and look through all your printed photos from the journey. Let me tell you, 11 days is a lot of pictures to go through and get printed, only to pick one or two and the rest be thrown away. It seems like a giant waste of printer paper and ink, but alas, that is what it is. Now, if you find some and you don't want them to get ruined every time you're looking through them, they will put them aside for you and create a folder for you. So that's what we ended up doing. We ended up having them every time we found one that we liked, put it in a folder for us, and then they kept it on the side. And then when we were ready to make our decision on the final night, they brought it out. We were able to go through the ones that we liked, pick those, and then buy those. 11 days does come with a really cool itinerary. We got to go to ports in Central and South America, as well as some islands. We started off in Costa Rica. We were only in port for about 6 hours, and we did a 4.5-hour excursion, which was a zip lining tour that we already did a review for that you can watch here. And that pretty much took up the whole time just due to travel time, clearing customs, having to be back on the ship. So we really weren't able to explore. But the main takeaway for you to know is when you're in Puerto Limon, which is the Atlantic side of Costa Rica, that is more of the industrial side where you have a lot of like oil refineries, you have the shipping yards, you have like the fruit exportation, and then really there's nothing. You're immediately into third world country, Costa Rica. And our tour guide even said, if you were expecting the pretty mountains and volcanoes, that's on the other side, on the Pacific side towards the north of Costa Rica. That's where all the resorts are. So just know Atlantic side is not what you're expecting when you're thinking Costa Rica, these picturesque views that you've seen before. However, our bus ride did take us up into the mountains, into a rainforest to do the zip lining, which we highly recommend. Our next port was Colón, Panama. And if you haven't seen our short about problems in Panama, I recommend you go watch it. It is crazy there. There's a lot of politics going on with what's involved with the port, who runs the port, companies paying people off, who's allowed to go on excursions and who's not allowed to go off on excursions. It ended up causing major issues at the port for some of the clients. However, we chose to go hire our own driver and basically created our own private tour, and we got to do everything we wanted to do, and it was about $200. So what did we get for $200? We got a taxi ride that took us all the way to New Panama City and Old Panama City, which is on the Pacific side of the country. We walked around Old Panama City. The taxi driver actually walked with us and pointed stuff out. Then we went to New Panama City, kind of drove through it. A lot of it was shut down due to a bike race where they had the main drag shut down, backing up traffic everywhere. So we didn't really get to get out in New Panama City anywhere. We did go to a mall to eat, and the mall was actually really cool. So they had like the escalators covered with a dinosaur that made it look like he was eating you as you went up the escalator. They had just random statues of animals around. They had a McDonald's kiosk that only made like desserts in the center. And I got to do a guava shake, which is really cool. And then we just ate traditional Panamanian food in the food court there. From there, we got to go to Miraflores Locks, where we got to see ships passing through the channel, which is really cool. I just feel like that's one of those things you gotta see is ships passing through the Panama Canal. You're already there. We didn't get to go in the canal, so I think that'd be a sailing we do another day is a Panama Canal cruise. But at least we got to go see it, which was a neat experience.
When you're thinking about the Panama canals, you want to check the timing of the locks because if you don't know, they're very slow moving. It takes hours. So you could spend hours there if a ship is not coming through without seeing anything. So make sure you check the lock schedule before you go and spend time there.
On our way back to the port, we asked about walking around Kelowna and our driver's like, I do not recommend it. It was not a safe area. It is not a good port to walk around. And he was like, this is really, really a bad area. It's probably not the side of town you want to be hanging around on. Next up was Cartagena, Colombia. It was really cool because it was an overnight port. So we were there for 2 full days and we really, really liked it. Their port there, Port Oasis, is really, really nice. They've done a great job with that port.
So when you dock, you don't even realize you're at a commercial port because everything is beautified.
They have screens on the fences. They've got flowers and shrubs and everything just while you're leaving the cruise ship.
The really cool part of the port is the aviary. In order to leave the port area, you have to go through an aviary, and there are not free-range birds.
They're not free range.
Okay.
The birds can go wherever they want. They can come and go as they please. Their wings aren't clipped. They could fly all around. There's ducks, there's
Lovebirds, flamingos, parrots,
peacocks galore.
toucans, there's monkeys there, there's an anteater. I mean, tons of cool animals. One of the cool things is that it's free. It's just part of porting there. So you walk through, get to see all the animals, wind your way through. If you want to interact with the animals, you can. If not, you just continue on your way out. And then there's a nice little taxi area where they can pick you up and drop you off at, or you can continue on out of the port and walk around by yourself. There's a lot of neat things to do in Cartagena. It's a lot, it would make this video super long. So we did a review for that as well. So we have a port guide for Cartagena right here that you guys can watch. Aruba was our next stop. Unfortunately, Carnival Cruise Lines was a little slow leaving port, 2 hours slow. So by the time we got in, the sun had already set. A lot of the things were closed. We were basically unable to do anything. Even people trying to take pictures with the I Heart Aruba sign were really struggling because the flashes didn't look good and it was very dark there. So shout out to Carnival for ruining our port in Aruba. Obviously it's not Royal's fault, we just didn't have a slip to go into. But we've been to Aruba before. It's basically a high-end shopping area. We aren't gonna be buying stuff at Dolce & Gabbana, so we weren't really sweating that. But it does suck that everything was closed and there's nothing to do there. So that was kind of a wasted port. Finally, our last port day was in Curacao. Curacao, we did all of the things from walking the Rip Fort, down to the floating bridge, riding the floating bridge, and then going to the little Amsterdam waterfront looking area, hung out there for a little bit, and then we took a taxi to one of the best beaches ever. It was a super small, super private beach with all the amenities. And if you're curious on finding out which beach this is, I would say watch this video right here. It is epic. You have to go to this beach when you're going to Curacao. It has everything you need. 2 restaurants, a bar, a dive shop, food, everything, bathrooms, showers, chairs, shade, no shade, beautiful, stunning water, free range chickens walking around, pretty much anything you can think of. Watch this video. I'm telling you, you will not regret going to this beach.
Overall, our Grandeur sailing was wonderful. Like, it was absolutely amazing. We had some bumps along the way, but that's
Gonna happen. The staff on Grandeur, hands down, amazing, wonderful. You felt like family by the time you were gone. And yes, we were with them for 11 days, but you still felt like family.
Yeah, the staff was fantastic. I almost feel like they know that their ship has less amenities, so they strive to give you excellent service there to make up for that, except for the main dining room. We met some really great people. I already told you about Cyan. We also had Ida Bogus, who was an amazing young man who actually won Employee of the Month for them. while we were on the ship, which was really cool. I mean, staff just went out of the way everywhere. So we do recommend Grandeur for a longer sailing if you don't need all those other amenities of the bigger ships, because the staff is gonna make it up for you. Just know there are some downsides to being on an older, smaller ship. Wi-Fi service issues, things aren't gonna be in as great of a state as they would be on a brand new ship. Your rooms might not be in as great of state of repair as a new ship would be. And you're just gonna be missing out on a lot of the bigger ship amenities. There's no Studio B ice skating, there's no aqua theaters, there's no carousels, there's no go on and on and on. But if you're okay with that and you're okay with getting an amazing itinerary with an amazing staff, we'd recommend this ship.